Hey everyone, I'm Donna Druchunas, and this is Procreate and Tech Tips with Sequential Artist Workshop, aka SAW. And today we're going to do a couple basic things, which is look at some ways to get art from paper into Procreate. And I'm going to focus on black and white line art, but a lot of the steps are the same if you wanted to bring in a whole a painting for a background or something else. And then we're going to look at how to set up kind of a template for if you're going to work on a multi-page or a multi-issue comic for the web, or it doesn't matter, but making a template so that you don't have to start from scratch for each page or each comic that's going to be in a series of the same size and the same color palette and so forth. So that's what we're going to do today. And I will switch the spotlight for everyone to my iPad, and we can go ahead and take a look at some of that. So like I said, we're going to look at templates and importing line art. And actually, we're going to look at it in the opposite order. So this is something I drew on paper as a line drawing, and then I brought it into Procreate. So I'll open it in Procreate here, and I'll show you my layers. So I've got, like you can see in the layer palette, different things of colors. For example, this one, if I click and hold the check, it hides everything else. That one's just like the color of the characters. Click and hold the check, and the other layers come back. This layer is the line art that I brought in from something I drew on paper. So I'm going to show you how I did that, because a lot of times, well, I know I do, and a lot of other people say they like some of their drawings on paper better, and they want to bring them into Procreate to use in a comic, and you can certainly do that. Sometimes it's just your sketch, but sometimes you want to use the actual line art or other art that you did as a finished part of your comic. Okay, so to do this, we're going to start with a photo or scan. And the steps are basically adjusting the hue, saturation, and brightness and the curves, and then changing the layer blend mode. And so this one is completely in Procreate. So here's my original photo. So I've already imported it here, but if you have taken a photo of a drawing, you can just click on photos, find it in your photos, and open it by clicking on it. Come on. And there we go. So here it is. That's all I did. If you have a scan, you would go back here. If you were to bring a scan in, you would click import and then go on your iCloud Drive, on your iPad, Google Drive, wherever you have it, and find your scan instead of a photo. But I brought it in from my photo album. And you can see I didn't even try to take a good clear photo. The background's darker here than it is here. I've got, as I usually do in my sketchbooks, smudges of paint or pastels or something on the pages. So I just brought it in without worrying about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that that layer is selected. Now it was because I just opened the photo, but I always check my layers, or try to remember to, because I do stuff on the wrong layer a lot. So that layer is selected. So I'm going to go up here to the magic wand, which is the adjustments, and I'm going to pick the first one, hue, saturation, and brightness. First thing I'm going to do is take saturation all the way down, so there's no color in it, it's just grays. And then I'm going to take brightness up a little bit so it looks pretty white. You can't take it all the way up or everything turns white and it disappears, but I just want to make it look fairly white in the background instead of a dark gray. So that's step one. Step one is use the adjustments, hue, saturation, and brightness. Turn saturation down all the way and brightness up a little bit. And you're just going to have to play with it. You don't want the lines to start to disappear or turn light gray, but you want the background to kind of start to disappear. Don't worry about it being perfect, because after we do that, we're going to go into the adjustments menu again, and this time we're going to go down a couple and pick curves. This is a little more complicated for people to understand, but we're not going to do very much in it. We're going to kind of make this straight line into an S. So on the side near the right is going to affect the whiteness. So we're going to just click and bring it up a little on the right. Can you see how it got brighter already? And then we're going to click here on the left and kind of bring it down, which is going to darken the lines. And that's it. So that's what I do to this. And then I go to the layer and click on the N, because it's set to normal by default, and scroll all the way to the top and pick multiply. Now it looks exactly the same, right? But what happened to it now, in the multiply mode, white is invisible. I'm still seeing white here because my background color is set to white. So I'm going to change my background color to tan. Now you can see that there's actually no white showing in that layer. If I change the layer blend mode back to normal, the white becomes visible again. When I change it to multiply or other things, but multiply is the one I use. You can, do other ones. I use multiply for this purpose. And then the white disappears. So now I can make a new layer, drag it down behind the other layer, because I like my lines to be on the top. So when I color it, it doesn't cover up the lines. And now I can take whatever color I want and whatever painting brush I want. Look, here's a gouache wash brush. And I can start coloring. Now this I'm doing is like a watercolor wash with these brushes called a gouache wash. I'm not trying to make it solid or color in the lines or anything, but you can see there that the color is behind the black line. So the color doesn't mess up the line by me painting on it. So that's one way to bring line art in. That is to just take a picture of it from your sketchbook, change the hue, saturation, and brightness and the curves, and then set it to multiply mode. And that is using only Procreate and your camera. I'm going to show you another 2 ways with different apps that you can get for free, which is Cam Scanner and Medibang Paint. Cam Scanner is an app that I have on my phone. I usually use it on my phone, but you can use it on your iPad too. It works with the camera, and it makes your camera work more like a scanner instead of a camera. And then Medibang Paint is a manga drawing app. So let's look at what we can do in both of those. And we're going to work with that same photo. So this is Cam Scanner, and it's an iPhone app, so it looks like the iPhone on here. Now, I can't take a photo for you today because my iPad is here on the desk, etc. But you could click on this right there and it would open your camera and you could take a photo. Instead of that, I'm going to look for a photo. And I don't know where my photos are. So let's see if we can figure out where our photos are. Import files. No, I want photos. I just did this before we were on the call, so I don't know what happened to it. Import images. I had to click on something to get that up. So now I'm going to import the photo. I'll show you that again. But so here it brings in the photo and it draws a box around it. because maybe your photo had other stuff in it. So you can change these lines if you wanted to, like, crop out the spiral part of your sketchbook or something. And then you can also rotate it left or right if you had taken the picture the wrong way. So after you get that set, you can click the arrow, and then you get these choices. And they have this thing called magic color. And look what it did. It changed it to white and black. So it did the hue, saturation, and curve stuff for me. So after I pick magic color, and you can look at the other choices too. There's a black and white one, magic color, and you could see which one you like. But mostly I use magic color. And then you click the check again, and you've got your image there. Now, what I can go right to here is I can share it. And then it gives you a choice. Do you want to make a PDF or a document or other things? I'm going to say image, and I can then click Procreate. Now it's sending it to Pocket because it thinks it's on the iPhone, but it came in to Procreate. Now, when you bring something into Procreate from another app, it does not bring it into the stack. So we were in this stack called Saw Stuff, and I saw, oh, my new image didn't come in here from Cam Scanner. So I clicked to the title of the stack to get out of it. This is my main gallery, and there's my image. It brought it into and it says Cam Scanner and the date and the name. So I can take that and just press and hold it and drag it into the stack wherever I want. So now when I go in here, I still have to do the same thing to change it to multiply. And when I change the background color, you can see that that worked. When I change it back to normal, so that did the same thing, except it saved me having to fudge around with the hue, saturation, and I didn't have to go into hue, saturation, and brightness. I didn't have to go into curves, because Cam Scanner did that part for me. So that's a shortcut you can use. You do have to watch out though when you're doing it, because it doesn't show on this because of where my drawing is and it's all white, but it puts a little watermark in. So depending on what you're doing, you might get that showing up. So we're going to go back to Cam Scanner just so I can show you a couple of things for it again. So I'm done with this. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. And
hey, Donna, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
And you can tell me if this is coming later. But I find often at the point at which I'm importing my sketch, and maybe I just missed it, as I'm doing the lightening, you know, to make the white become white, so that when I put it on multiply, it drops nicely away. My black lines lose their blackness.
Yeah,
they become very gray.
That's why you have to, here's back to my original one. So saturation down, brightness up. Your black lines will lose some of their blackness and when you do the brightness up. They do. That's why you go into curves after that.
Yeah.
And you could, if you get really good at curves, you don't need to do the hue saturation. You can do it in curves. But I like to get rid of the saturation first, so I know there's no tan or whatever in there.
Yeah.
And when you bring this up, when you bring this side down, it brings the black.
Ah, okay.
That's what makes the black blacker again. And you can mess around with how far to bring it over. If you look here, if I start to bring it over too far, then it brings other stuff in.
Yep.
But you can bring it over as far as you need to. And of course, I could erase that. That's a smudge on my paper. I could erase that if I wanted to.
Thanks.
The other thing that I do sometimes is duplicate the layer. I might duplicate the layer a couple of times and merge it. And sometimes that makes the lines get darker.
Ah, great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna be, it's not perfect, right? There's no perfect way to get it in without drawing it digitally. But see, in this one, you can see what I just did. I didn't get it pure white. So if I make it multiply and change the background color, it doesn't show through. So I can see that I didn't get it right because when I change the background color, let's see, go to multiply. Ah, it did work. Okay, it was okay. That's how I check it by changing the blend mode. If it doesn't show the background color through when you've changed it, and you just click on background and pick a different color. When you change that from white, if your thing is still white, either you still have it on normal here, or back in your curves, you have to go up more with the white. Because the white is what disappears in multiply mode. Why? I don't know. That's how multiply mode works. Okay? Yeah. So Cam Scanner I use sometimes, doing it myself I use sometimes, and the other thing I use is Medibang Paint. So I'll show you that too. And Medibang Paint and CamScan you can get for free. They have free and paid versions. So Cam Scanner, I have the free version. I think it's a subscription. I don't want to do a subscription just for this purpose. If you use it a lot, you could. Medibang Paint is a free version and it had some ads, and I think I paid $6 for the full version. So for me, it was worth it. I don't use it a lot, but I use it for this and a couple other things. So this is Medibang Paint, and it looks really complicated, but we're not going to use a lot of stuff in it. We're going to go here and say new canvas. And then we're going to say browse and import, because that goes right to our photos. So I'm going to click on that same photo and my photo album. And when it opens it up, it comes up with this thing that says, do you want to do reverse line extraction? And so I'm going to say yes, extract the lines, and watch what happens. Boop. There it has the lines. You can, now it's adjusting the shadow, the mid-tone, and the highlight. So it's adjusting the curves in a different way. And you can, mess around with that. But I find leaving it how it sets it is the best. It's pretty darn smart. So I do that. I adjust it a little if I want to. Usually I don't. And then I click done. And then it will say, do you want to protect the line art layer? It doesn't matter to me, because I'm not going to continue working in Medibang. So here's my thing in there, and I can go then up to their menu and export this as a PNG file and pick PNG transparent. This is the cool part of it. And then I can open that in Procreate, and it's going to send it to Procreate. So we'll go back to Procreate and we'll go, remember, it does not bring the new things into the folder or the stack. So we have to go out of the stack, and there's the one from Medibang Paint. Now, without doing anything, if I change my background color, it's already transparent. So I didn't have to even change it to multiply. So that's 3 different ways you can get black and white line art into Procreate for your drawings. So if you have to watch those over, it's okay. I think most people, a lot of times I just use the Procreate one because I don't have to use another app. But if I'm taking a picture on my phone, I may as well use CamScan instead of the camera app, and then I can do it that way. So I have no consistency. I just do whatever I'm in the mood to do. But you can do it all in Procreate, or you can do it using helper apps. And that's it. So you get your line art in. And like I said, it might be just a sketch that you're going to draw over, or it might be final art. In this case, I did it in here. I made just a drawing. And so there's my, if I click and hold, there's my line art. Just like I brought in there. And then I added different layers of colors and various things to make it into a fun thing. Now, of course, this I was playing with, and that's not part of it. But yeah, so you can have a lot of fun with it without drawing the line art on here if you like your paper better. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you today. Any questions on that?
Donna?
Yeah.
Hi, it's Pam Y. Thank you for
Oh,
sending
hi,
me the
Pam.
link. Yeah, I do have 2 accounts, and that's a long story.
No, it's
But
okay.
going back to the Medibang paint,
Mhm.
you create a new canvas, you browse, you select your picture, and where does it ask you, do you want to do line extraction? How do you get that question?
Okay, it does that right away. So I'm going to say new canvas and then browse and import so I can pick my photo. I'm going to pick my photo and it automatically comes up to that.
Oh,
There it's at, and you just pick extract lines and done.
okay.
And then
Great.
I usually say don't protect, but since we're not going to draw any further in Medibang Paint, that doesn't matter. And
Okay.
then you go back to the menu and you say export PNG and pick transparent PNG. Now you can open it right in Procreate, or you can save it to your photos. So you can do either one. You can save it to your photos and then open it in Procreate from your photos, or you can go directly to Procreate. I did this before. This time I'll say save image. It says completed down here. This stays the same. So when you're done in Medibang Paint, you're going to go back up to that menu. You're going to use that little hamburger menu in the upper left corner a lot, and you're going to say close canvas. And here I'm not going to save it because I'm done with it. I got what I wanted. So I'm going to leave without saving. If you don't close your image, next time you use Medibang Paint, it opens with an error. So it doesn't hurt anything, but I usually close it because I hate that. That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So yeah, those are the 3 ways I did it that I learned from different people. I think I learned from Erin in our memoir group about the extract line, and CamScan I learned from Louis Ringasol, who teaches classes on Carla Sondheim's site. And the other one, I forgot where I learned it about the changing it to multiply mode. But I saw it on probably a Skillshare class or something. Okay. Any more questions on that?
No, I don't have a question, but I have a comment. So I'm using a 4th method where whenever I scan, I just use a black and white setting on my scanner.
Oh, yes. Okay.
But I agree it helps to play with hue, saturation, and brightness whenever you take a picture with your phone of your art. So
Right. Because when you take a picture of your phone, I mean, and I'm not very careful with it when I take the picture, like I said, but obviously my paper was probably off-white, but it came out tan in my photo. Taking photos in brighter natural light will get you a whiter background. But yes, if you use a scanner, you can change those settings as you scan, and most scanners will be pretty good at making the paper white if you did it on white paper. So yeah, and scanning gives you more control over the resolution and other options. But yeah, but I do a lot of stuff with just photos. So I just like to tell people that because not everyone has a scanner. Here's another thing I drew on paper that I just took a photo of. And I did here already adjust the hue saturation, but you can see that it was on paper because it was a dot grid and it still has the little dots in the drawing. And I put them into this page in one of my comics, and I didn't make them transparent. I just erased parts of it because I wanted the white part to be left and look like it was a cutout. But I used that stuff that I just took photos of in my comics a lot. So scanning, photos, either way. Yeah, I've been scanning my mummy ones though, not taking photos of them.
Donna, what happened to the dots in the dot grid on that one? Did it just disappear into that background or are they still there?
Oh, I erased part of them, but let's see if we, come on,
Okay.
open. Okay, let's open it. Yeah, they're still there,
I
see?
see. Yeah,
I
I see.
left them because I thought it was kind of cool. I probably could have found a way to get rid of them with curves because they're lighter than the black lines. So if you messed around with curves, I probably could have found a way to get rid of them. Or it would have been interesting. I didn't have Cam Scanner then. It would have been interesting to see if Cam Scanner thought they were black or white. So it would have either made them darker or lighter. And that would have been an experiment. For me, because I was adding all kinds of textures in here anyway, I didn't care. And I thought that's kind of cool. And my mummy ones, I did on a paper with a grid on it. I did it in one of these little Hobonichi books. So it's got a grid in it. If you can see that. And I left that in too. But in those, I'm scanning them all. I colored them on paper and everything. So. All right, more questions? Okay, so I want to talk about templates because I don't like doing things over and over again, menial tasks. So this is going to help us set up a template so that it could have panels and information on the brushes, colors, fonts, shapes, and all different things that we use in a comic that we want to use over and over again. So I did templates for my comics for my folktale comics. And I ended up changing some stuff later on in it, and these were for print, but the basic idea of what I'm going to show you is things you can do for print or web comics. But I wanted to have the same size page as well as the same color palettes, the same kind of panel borders. I wanted to use the same pencil for drawing my borders and drawing other things. So I made a template for that because I made 6 booklets and they were all 20 pages each. And I didn't want to just use the built-in thing. So you can use this built-in thing from Procreate. And if you're on your gallery and you press the plus sign, it shows you sizes that it came with, and I actually made some new ones. So I was doing, I call it's a hill of witches. So Raganu Kalnas is hill of witches in Lithuanian. So I made a template here called Raganu Kalnas. That was the size I wanted and everything. But if I open it, all I get is a blank document that's the size I want. So that's only one thing. That's the size. That's nice, but what font did I use for my text again? And what brush did I use to draw my panel borders? And all of that is not there. So instead of having a blank template like that, which is nothing, I have a template like this that's got all kinds of things in it. And this would be whatever the size is that you're doing, so if it was for a web comic, it could be, 300 by 9,000 pixels. I don't even know what the thing is. It could be 6 by 9 paper. It could be 5 by 8.5, whatever. We're not going to worry about the paper size right now. But what I do is I put a bunch of layers in it with different things. So first thing is I put a layer with my brushes. And what brushes do I use a lot in this? So here I have my dry ink brush. These are just brushes I use. Whatever you use, you would pick. So I use this brush called dry ink a lot for drawing, and I've saved a couple of sizes on it. That's a newer feature. So I have 8% and 3%. So if you can see if I click here, it says 3% and there's a little line, and this line is 8%. If you want to save the size of a brush, press and hold at that and let go where you want it to be at the size. Press and hold, and you can put a plus sign and it adds a line there at that size. So in this case, I just added a line at 25%. I don't really need that line. Oops, I did it by mistake. You just go back in there, click minus, and the line goes away. So you can have several brush sizes saved in here, but I still like to put them in the document. So I use dry ink at 8% and 3%. And then I'll remember what that is. And if I'm not sure why, I might put this, make it one of the smaller sizes. And I use this for my line art, or I could say inking or sketching, whatever you want to say. You just put your notes in. I used a brush in my folktale comics called Inca, and I called it Inca Panels. I made a copy of it. I just touched it to select it, and then I touched it again, and it opens this thing, Brush Studio, with lots of menus. If you go all the way to the bottom, you can change the name of a brush here. And so I added panels to the name of this brush because I wanted to remember that that's the brush I use for my panels. So I put it right in the name of the brush. And then I saved a couple of sizes for that too. And I like kind of messy panel borders. So I just draw sort of a shape and hold and let it do its thing. And so that's what I was using for that. And then this is just an example. So I picked two other brushes that I would use for coloring, which is a flatting brush, which just makes a totally solid thing in whatever color you're using. And then I picked a gouache brush for this example and did it. And you can use it in multiple colors and multiple sizes. I didn't bother saving the sizes of these because they're for painting, and I will change the size as I go, depending what I'm painting. I don't usually have a preferred size of a brush, but if you do, you can write it down in there, or you can touch that and save it in the size. So that's one layer that I have where I make notes about what brushes I used. So another layer I have is I make notes about the colors that I use. In this case, I have a color palette. So you can, when you click on the circle on the upper right, it brings you into your colors. And if you click all the way on the right at the bottom, it shows you all the palettes you have. And I made one for this. And those are the colors I did. So to make a picture of that in my color layer, because I just wanted to have a duplicate of it, I went to the top left of my iPad and I pushed the two buttons at the corner at the same time, and it makes a screen capture. And I just cropped it. So it just showed the color palette like that. And I said, copy. Then I deleted the screen capture because I don't need it for anything else. And I went here and I said, paste. So I put my color palette right in my document there. You don't really need to do that, but I wanted to for just so that I could see it easily. So we'll just go back to that layer by clicking and holding. There are some things you do, it turns on more layers than you want. I don't know why, but click and hold that dot, it turns all the layers on. Click and hold the check spot and it turns all the layers off except the one you're working on. So I put my color palette in there, and then I took, like here, the gouache brush, and I picked one of the colors for my color palette, and I just did some painting with it to see what it would look like. And you can do that with all the colors or some of them. So this is just like a piece of paper that you can doodle on in swatches for colors. The other one was for brushes. If you have a brush that I know I'm going to use this gouache brush a lot, I might go through my color palette here and just make a little blob of every single color so I can see how they look with this brush, because some brushes change the colors a little bit. What have I done there? I accidentally hit this side with my finger. So not only can you change the size of a brush, but you can change the opacity of a brush. If you ever have a brush disappear like I just did, you might have bumped the opacity all the way to 0 and then the brush won't paint. Or that's not what I did, but I do that often because I keep my hand on here. The other thing I did, if you have this turned on, if you have the feature turned on where you can double tap your pencil, it changes from the brush to the eraser.
Hmm.
You can turn this on and off, but if your brush stops working, you may have done that if you have that feature on. I like it on, so I'm going to leave it on, but I have to sometimes check what happened because I lose my brush. I do like to use that feature to switch back and forth quickly if I'm drawing, so I don't turn it off. So the colors is another layer that I put in there. Then I put this layer, which is an area where my panels will be. Now, there's all kind of things about page sizes that you've heard. We talked about them before. We'll talk about them again, about bleed and trim, safe zone, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into that today because you only need those for certain things. Like if you're sending something to a printer. If you're printing on your own printer, you don't really need them. If you're making something for the web, you don't need them. But what you do want is some kind of guide of where your panels are going to go in this comic, because even if you print a comic that's going to go on the web, if you're having panels, you don't want them to go all the way to the edge. You usually have a border of the page, right? So I can turn that on, add a new layer, pick black for my color or whatever I want, go to my panel brush, and then I can just draw panels. And whether I want them to be straight or I don't care because I like mine to be crooked, I can just make sure that they're inside that zone. Or if I want an even border, I can make sure they go right to the edge. So that just gives me an idea of where my panels go. And that's, I have this guide on too, because if you're very tidy and you want, to make panels the same size, you can count how many squares are in them. And you can go on the layer when you have in the layer, when you go into the actions menu, which is the little wrench, there's a thing called drawing guide. And when you turn that on, it comes up with just squares. And that's what we're going to use for right now. You can change this and use it for other purposes. But right now, I just wanted the squares so I could count and get an idea of size, because Procreate doesn't have a ruler per se. So this is one way to say, like, okay, if I want to draw something that's five boxes, then it's a square. You can use that as a way to kind of guideline. But if you go into the layer then and click on the picture of the layer, the little thumbnail, there's a thing called Drawing Assist. Then when it has the checks, the vertical and horizontal lines, you can only draw vertical and horizontal lines. So that's another way to use that. And I can also then go and say, okay, I want it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pixels wide, and so many, not pixels, but so many, whatever measurement that is, grid squares. But anyway, I like to know where I want my panels to be so that I keep them away from the edge, whatever it is, whether it's print or web comics. I still like that. Then you can keep another notes layer, which I do for what you're going to do for speech bubbles and caption boxes, and wherever you get those from. Like, here's a hand-drawn speech balloon. So I could draw one and write, I use syrup 14%. Whoops, sorry. On that layer, I look and I say, okay, I used the syrup brush and I used it at 14%. Okay, now I can draw more speech bubbles with that brush. Whoops, why did it do that? Because I had something on, or I was on the wrong line, but layer. Whenever you get something unexpected, check what layer you're on, check if you have drawing assist on. I like, anyway, so you can say I want such and such a brush and I drew them by hand. Or you can get them from clip art or somewhere else, but keep notes about what you're using for speech balloons and caption boxes. And then the last thing is have some text layers in there that are already sent to the font. Unless you're drawing, you're writing by hand, but have 2 text layers in there. I usually have 2 that are set. One, it just says dialogue text, but it's already set to the font and size that I want for my speech balloons, and another one called caption text that's already set to your caption size. And then when you want to add text to that, you can just click on it and say edit text and change it to be whatever you want. Or you can duplicate it and then you have another layer. It's already to caption text, and I can say, okay, that one's going to go in this box and it's going to say blah, blah, blah. So you don't have to remember what font you used or size because you have these layers of text already in there. And then I make that in a group called Notes and Grid. So I can just turn that whole, turn those all off if I want. Okay, any questions about any of that? Basically, it's just making notes about all the things that you did in your, it looks like I deleted some of my layers, but that's okay, because this is just the demo. And I haven't closed my file, so I can keep going undo, undo, undo. Interestingly, I want you to remember, you can do a ton of undos in a document as long as you haven't gone up here and clicked gallery. If you go up here and click gallery and go out of your document, you lose all the undos. So just remember that. You can do tons of undos by clicking with your 2 fingers, or redos by clicking with 3 fingers, and it brings it back. But once you click gallery and leave and go out of this canvas, all those undos are erased and you can't use them anymore. So you're stuck with where you are. So be careful about leaving the image till you're ready.
Donna, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, this is really helpful. It seems like it's some work up front to take those notes and get them in the right place.
Right.
But then it saves probably lots of time ultimately.
Right.
So I'm going to start doing this. I did start already. Thank you. My question is about the recent brushes. It doesn't seem to work very well to tell me what brushes I've used recently. Do you have any trouble with that?
No, I don't use it very often, but it's got syrup, Inca panels, the gouache wash, flatting round brush, dry ink. It's got the ones I used today. So it works.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't use it very often, but when I haven't noticed any problems with it.
Okay.
But
Donna,
I do make, you may have noticed that for all these brushes I'm using, I'm going into this one folder called Donna Best. So of all these folders of brushes, I will gather the ones I like the best and put them into a favorites folder. And you can just drag brushes. When you click it, if you click and hold, you can drag it and move it. Come on. And move it to a different folder or whatever. So you can move the things around in there, or you can swipe to the left and make a duplicate and then drag the duplicate into a different folder. You just go to that folder, go inside it and drop it. So I gather my brushes in there, and that's all of them I got, maybe 15, 20. So I don't have to go through like my hundreds of brushes looking for something. That's probably why I don't use the recents very often, because the brushes that I use 95% of the time for whatever comic I'm working on, I put them into a folder. So this is what I was using last year, and now I have a new folder called 2023 that has a different selection, but it's still, what is that? Maybe 20 brushes. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
the ones I use a lot, and I find like anything else, the fewer things you use, the more consistency you get in your artwork, so that's why I usually stick to a few brushes, a few colors, a few elements, one or two or three fonts. In this sample I had one for dialogue text and one for caption text, so I don't have, very many of anything.
Good. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Donna, talking about fonts, this is Pam Y. Have
Uh-huh.
you had a font made in Calligrapher for your handwriting?
Yeah, actually I made several. Let me go in here, select my text and click the A to bring up my font stuff. I have this one, which is, it doesn't really, let's see, I didn't do this one in Calligrapher. I did this in iFont Maker or something. So it doesn't really look like my handwriting. This one that I call Donna Chisel, I did it in Calligrapher, and I call it Donna Chisel because I drew it in Procreate with the chisel brush. And then I have this one called Donna Slob because it's my real handwriting and it's really sloppy. But yeah, so I used those and I was able to bring them into Procreate, and yeah.
Cool.
Let's just be done with the template here. There's some other things I wanted to show you about a template, but that's enough for today to fill our brain. I just wanted to show you that somewhere I have my template from the Calligrapher app. And this is what you get. You download this from them, and it has you can download it with blanks, but I like, or you can download it with a very light symbols written in it. And I leave the symbols written in it so that I know approximately how big to draw my letters. And so I set this up in it. I opened the PDF from Calligrapher in here, and it brings each PDF page in as a separate layer in here. And then I drew my letters on it. And that's that. And then you export this again and import it to Calligrapher, and it makes your handwriting. So it's pretty simple. There's a little bit more details than that, but basically it's not that hard. You have all these pages you can fill out. So here's the lowercase letters, symbols. You want to fill in everything. Sometimes we're tempted to, well, not things you're never going to use, but dashes, punctuation marks, numbers. You want to fill all of that in. And some of these letter combinations or ligatures, you want to fill in those things so that everything works right. Because if you leave something out, like if I didn't put in a question mark here and I made this font, then Procreate or wherever you used a font wouldn't know what to do. So it would put in Arial or something, and it wouldn't work right. Because you didn't have that. They call it a glyph. Each of these is called a glyph in the font world. But anyway, that's all you do is you fill that out, and that's the basics of it.
And you filled that out in Procreate using a PDF, and each letter is a different layer, you said?
Oh, no. Each page of the PDF was a different layer.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I just wrote right on it. So you can see this layer here. I wrote right on it. Whoops, I have a weird brush picked. Let's go to my dry ink. I just wrote right on it. And then, yeah. So I just,
So,
yeah, I did it as if it was paper. If it was a piece of, you can do this on paper too, and then scan it and upload. But I wanted to do it in Procreate because then the letter brushes that I use for writing my letters would kind of match the brushes I used in my drawing.
Mm-hmm.
But
so I'll add one piece of don't do what I did mistake cautionary tale, which is I used the free version of Calligrapher to make my handwriting font, which was great, really great for virtually every purpose, but it does not include certain glyphs, like Donna pointed out, but notably a dash. And there were ellipsis and one or two other things. So you're working on it, happy as a clam, and you think it's all there, and then you get a publishing deal and your publisher cannot find those glyphs because it
Right.
doesn't translate through. I mean, you send them the font, but they're not in the font pack. And this caused my publisher enormous angst as she tried to
Right.
find the glyphs that weren't there and to then find something that matched. And she made me swear I would never do that to her again. So what I want to tell you is that for a very little cost, well, God, I can't remember.
for $6
$10
or $8 for a
Yeah.
month.
Less than $10 for a month, you can pay Calligrapher and then you get the full glyph set. And so I went back in, I mean, after my book was gone, but now that I'm working on another one, I went back in, I paid, and actually it's dirt cheap for 6 months. I want to say $20 or $24 for a 6-month deal.
Mhm.
Unlimited number of fonts, the full glyph set. You download them, you own them forever. You don't have to keep paying Calligrapher. They don't store them for you. So you got to finalize your font, download it and keep it yourself, but you get the full glyph set. So if
Right.
you're going that route, pay that money, make the full glyph set.
Right. Now, if you're making only comics for your website or online or to print yourself and you're happy with what you've got without paying, that's okay. But as Beth said, publishers are going to be much more picky when they're going to be, if you ever are going to do a book, yes, and they're going to want to have everything.
And rightly so, because my poor
Oh, yeah.
publisher, I mean, she had to do a
They
lot of
want it
extra
to
work.
be,
Yeah.
they have certain standards and guidelines so that their books have the quality they want, which may not match what we're satisfied with for a zine or a web comic. Yeah. So cool.
But do you know if the paid version allows you to create fonts that then you can use in bold? Because I know that one of the things in the free version that I struggle with is that whenever I want to write in bold, I have to just manually do
Oh,
that.
I
you
don't,
have to do it twice.
right.
So
You have to make it
fill out
bold.
the thing.
Okay.
So right. Let me pin my iPad again. So if I wanted to make two, this would be my regular one. And I would save it and upload. And then say whoops, I don't want to erase it. I would start over again. I would pick a bigger pen and make a bold version. So, and I do have that in some of my fonts. I have a regular and a bold version, but it doesn't build them automatically. So, that was something I did, which is nothing to do with what we're talking about, but this is what I did with iFont Maker. So the first one I showed you was Donna D. Hand. I made it in here. And I picked an alphabet. You pick an alphabet that you like from your fonts, and you use that for your basic size. And so I used that. It doesn't look as much like my handwriting because I used these letter guidelines, but you can see I didn't make it match the font that I was like using as a guideline, but it still is a little different than my regular handwriting was. But there is a feature in here where you can set your pen style and you can change the line width I don't remember where it is, but you can go into your font and you can somehow change the line width of the whole font. And so I made the regular one, and when I was done, I opened it up again and I changed it to fatter lines. I think it might be right here. No, I don't remember, sorry. But I changed it to fatter lines. And so I didn't redraw anything. I just said, take this alphabet and make a copy of it. And then wherever that feature is, sorry, I don't remember today, I made fatter lines. And so if you want to make variations like that, you might want to look at this iFont Maker app. So it's a different option, different way to make fonts.
Thank you.
Mhm. Those are the only two I know for iPad. I used I experimented with a real font making software. You know, your handwriting is one thing. If you want to make like a professional font, there's so much detail in it. So I read about that and tried out like Fontographer or something years and years ago. It's super hard. But these two are both pretty easy for making a handwriting font. So
Donna, I have one more question, and it
Sure.
has to do with creating folders in the brush library, which I've done before. I have lots of folders with favorites, but now I can't remember how to make a new folder.
Oh, okay. Let's spotlight my iPad again. So you're in your brushes and you've
Mhm.
got, say you bought some. I bought this set called Paint and Chill. Or maybe you have one that came with Procreate, but whatever. I want to make a new folder of favorites for my new comic series. So you just scroll all the way to the top of the folders
Oh,
and there's a
there it
plus.
is.
And that's your new folder. And
Great.
you can call it whatever you want. And then, like I said, I can go to my Paint and Chill that I bought, swipe left to duplicate a brush, and then I can click and hold, come on, and bring it to my new folder. And don't drop it on the name of the folder, it doesn't work. Bring it inside where the brushes are and let go. If you drop it on the name of the folder, it just disappears. And I can go into any of my brushes that I have, duplicate favorites, drag them into that new folder, and make my new set of favorites. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And
And
so
then,
theoretically, too, you could make a new folder for each project.
yes, I have made folders for a specific project, and then you can drag the folders wherever you want. So I have mine in some weird order that works for me. And then
Good,
if you
thank you.
want to get rid of a folder, you just click and hold, and you can rename it, delete it, and whatever. But to get a new one, you just have to scroll all the way to the top for the plus sign.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yes, you can see I have a bunch of brushes. Way at the bottom, I have the ones that came with Procreate. And then I have like all my watercolor brushes, all my ink brushes that I got from different places. Ones I got from Skillshare teachers. And then near the top, I have the ones I use the most. And then you can use in the names. I just want to give you one more tip. If you go in to rename a brush folder, you can use the emojis.
Huh.
So that's what I did for my favorite ones so that I could
Yeah.
find them really fast. I put a big green dot and a big red suitcase on them. I know I learned that because some brushes I got from other people came with that, came with an
Yeah.
emoji. So you can do that. All right. So yeah, that's it for today.
Thanks so much.
Coming. I just want to say, if you are interested in something more you know, I'm kind of free for all here and very casual. I teach the same way all the time, but I'm doing a very structured 4-week class for SAW where we're going to go through building a comic from scratch in Procreate and the features you need. Like we're going to start with more details on building a template, what I showed you today, but more stuff like how do you set the bleed zone in that. We're going to go through drawing in there and how to set it up for pencils and inking and coloring, making speech balloons and adding text and importing fonts. And then the last week will be different ways to share it, like how to export it if you need a PDF or JPEGs for the web or TIFF files for a publisher. So if you're interested in that, it's on the main SAW site in the online classes. So yeah, and I'm going to keep doing this every other week in this informal way as well. So yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Donna.
you.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna.
Bye-bye.
Donna.
Bye.
Bye.
you.